here we are, 2025. And at this weird futuristic date, a large portion of open source people, open source individuals, projects, foundations, companies are moving away from open source, almost redefining open source, and are fighting specifically to kill open source projects proudly and happily. It is the strangest thing to watch. I want to walk you through a little bit of this. This was all kind of spurred on by the recent announcement of a fork of Xorg, but we're seeing this across the open source industry, and we're just going to use Xorg as part of the discussion here. I'm going to read some posts I put up on X because I wrote it so nicely the first time. A large portion of the people in open source have been moving rather dramatically away from some of the core ideals of open source software. Here, for example, a release engineer for GNOME is celebrating the fact that they purposefully killed, his words, an open source project, in this case, Xorg, and nobody regrets it. And at the same time declaring things like you don't get to own Xorg, with organizations like Red Hat, Free Desktop, and others working to silence and shut down anyone who attempts to fork the project that they so happily killed. Major, and I really want to repeat this here, major open source organizations are now of the opinion that open source software should not be forked and should not be modified by anyone outside of their organization. GNOME, Red Hat, Free Desktop, Xorg, and more are all on board with this new not so open source. I'm going to show you the screenshot here because I found it absolutely just ridiculous. This is from Jordan Petridis. He's a release engineer over at GNOME. He says, quote, "You don't get to own Xorg," referring to people forking Xorg. "It belongs to the Xorg Foundation and community. Xorg literally hosts and runs Wayland and Weston. Xorg is dead and we killed it and nobody regrets it." And another guy named Sebastian Wick chimes in, "We worked hard to kill it." And he's right, they did. They absolutely did. And it is fascinating when you see people talking about the idea of forking an open source display server. You can't do that. Oh my word. What a horrible thing. You took free open source software and you forked it? That's not open source. That's really the opinion of a huge mountain of people within open source. And most of them, the vast majority of them, are on one political spectrum. It's true. It's weird, but it's true. I want to read another post I made because, again, I make such great posts and they have such good words in them. I'm going to read this here because it's fascinating. It's just a good bullet list. "The actions of Red Hat, Xorg, and Free Desktop are some of the most anti-open source things I have ever seen." It's not me blustering about it. I'm going to read you the bullet list here. "Suppressed thousands, literally thousands, like 3,000 of Xorg code submissions for several years. They refused to allow new Xorg releases. They badmouth and smear anyone who wants to continue developing Xorg. People have been offering, multiple developers have been like, here's code Xorg, and the Xorg maintainers and the people who run, and not the maintainers, but the people who run the Xorg Foundation are like, no, we're not doing new Xorg releases. Doesn't matter how many bugs we fix. Doesn't matter how many features we add, how much code cleanup you do. It does not matter. We're not doing it because you're all in fantasy la la land crazy people. If you think Xorg can be released ever again, we're not going to do it. And it's not because it can't be done. It's because they don't want it done. And they literally just will smear anyone who even tries. And when someone finally says, well, that's ridiculous, we'll just take the code, and if you don't want to, Xorg, Free Desktop, Red Hat, if you don't want to support and release Xorg, no big deal. It's open source, right? I'll fork it, go over here where I'm not bothering you, and I'll just release that software myself with new updates, right? So when someone finally forks Xorg and does that, ban their accounts, delete their repositories, and censor them all over the place and refuse to even talk with anyone about it. It's crazy. Crazy responses. Almost everything you could do to try and suppress and stop someone from having a fork of your project, they do. They deleted and closed as much evidence as they could of continued Xorg development over the course of several years. There were thousands of merge requests of varying quality and sizes, some little, some big, all over the map by lots of developers. They closed as much of them as they could in bulk without comment. Basically, they were scorched earthing the fact that Xorg people were trying to develop Xorg. They did not want you seeing that people wanted to continue development. They wanted to push forward the narrative that no one wanted to develop Xorg. Oh, it's dead. It's dead. No one wanted to develop it. And they wanted to just burn everything. And then they censor any discussion on any controllable platform of the Xorg fork. I'll show you a little bit of that here in just a second. It's happening all over the place. And then they refuse to speak to the fork developers or the tech journalists regarding those actions. It's the least transparent you can possibly be. It is literally the opposite of open. It's not just closed, it's closed and closing more. It's bolting it down so it cannot be opened. This all seems to stem, from what I can tell, from Red Hat. Red Hat seems to be a core piece of the driving force here. Others are involved. Other companies are involved. Other foundations are involved. Lots of independent developers are involved. However, Red Hat does seem to be a driving force here. And these are the actions of a corporation who is opposed to the very concept of open source. A corporation and a group of people that are dead set on destroying an open source project, on stopping people from using open source in the way that open source was intended to be used. Now, I want to point out that throughout all of this, I've reached out repeatedly to Xorg and Free Desktop and Red Hat and every other company and group I can think of. I have to date received not one response from anyone in any way, shape, or form relating to this. Other than the people who are developing the forks, they're like, yeah, what's going on? They're like, I'm trying to fork this software because they don't want to develop it. So I said, okay, I will. And then the people who are over there in Red Hat are like, you're evil. And then like people who are like tech journalists at the Register are like, oh, you're a climate denier, anti-vaxxer. You shouldn't be allowed to touch software. It's the most bizarre thing. Crazy, crazy things. Just the same, my email remains open if Red Hat or anyone else would like to finally engage with a journalist on this topic, and I think they should. And I want to show you just one example of what I mean here. So people are posting news reports that I've published, links to just my X posts regarding this, links to mailing lists where the developers of the Xorg fork in question have talked about what they're doing and why. These things have been getting out there. They've been posted to Reddit forums and Hacker News and Mastodon accounts and all over the place. And almost universally, they've been censored. I've been getting a constant, steady stream of people where they're like, okay, I tried to talk about this over on GNOME because, hey, will we be, as GNOME, could we support Ex Libre going forward? Deleted and censored. Not answered. Deleted and censored. Reddit subforums, like the r/Linux and other places. I think they let one post through and then locked it down, but they deleted all the rest of them, including ones that were about different stories and different pieces of the story. Just deleted them all. Hacker News flagged and suspended a bunch of people. It's crazy, right? One user posted this and said, the people on Reddit are extremely perturbed by its mere existence. And they're talking about the fork of Xorg. Look at the response and downvotes I received to my simple comment in r/GNOME. So this was a comment that someone made. This is an interesting example. In the r/GNOME subreddit, he said, quote, "I'm so glad X11 Libre has been announced." downvoted into oblivion, right? And there's like 11 downvotes when he screenshot. This is not an overly active subreddit, but all the people at Gnome, they desperately, if they're not deleting you, if they're not deleting your comments, if they're not censoring and banning you, they're downvoting you into oblivion. They desperately don't want people knowing about open source software being forked. And it's messed up. I'm sorry, but that's an incredibly messed up stance to be taking from open source organizations. But yet this is where we're at. This is where we're at right now. Open source foundations, organizations, projects, communities, individuals, corporations are moving to kill, their words, open source projects and try to just stop as with whatever power they can actually muster, which, you know, is a fair bit of power, any discussion or promotion of those open source projects. They don't want you knowing about them. They don't want you hosting it. They don't want you involved. If they have a couple of representatives, if there's a Red Hat representative at a project or foundation where you might be hosting or working with on an open source project, if they don't like it, they're going to ban you. That's what they just did. They literally just did that just now because they did not want you to be this developer to fork an open source project because it wasn't what they wanted. This is big corporations telling you what you're allowed to develop. It is absolutely against the ideas of open source, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And to be quite frank, if there's anyone that's supporting those actions of Red Hat, of Xorg, of Free Desktop, of GNOME, of many others, I would say flat out, those people hate open source, hate free software, because they're working against the ideals, the very core ideals of free software. It's an open source. It's absolutely asinine. I want to thank the subscribers to the Lunduke Journal for allowing me to look into this stuff, because it needs to get talked about, because there's a dramatic shift happening within the open source industry and ecosystem in general right now. And it really needs to be analyzed. It needs to be looked at, and it needs sunlight on it. Thank you for subscribing to the Lunduke Journal and allowing me to shine a big old spotlight on all of this stuff. Could not do this without you. And go to lunduke.com and click on links. If you want to support, that's the place to do it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare end broadcast.